Hi, everybody. And thank you guys. I just want to start off by saying thank you to everybody for tuning in. You know, okay, so just to get started, if you guys know me, y'all have definitely, or if you guys are familiar with Macam, then most likely you've seen me before, a few times. However, if you're new to Macam or you just haven't seen my face before, I'm going to start off by giving, a little introduction of myself, who I am, um, different stuff like that. So to start off, my name is Aja. We have a few different people leading the Pushin Pawns here at Macam, but I will also be one of them. So like I said, my name is Aja. I work with Macam. I've been working with Macam for a while now. So yeah, I'm a senior in high school. And yeah, so you guys are gonna be seeing my face a lot. Just gonna put that out there. But so yeah, today we're pretty much gonna go over learning chess, and that's what we're gonna do every Monday and Friday. So if you guys would like to see more of me, more of how to play chess, like I said, there are different people who run it. So, it's not just me, it's other people as well, but definitely tune in for them as well. But yeah, so if you guys want to, learn how to play chess with me, then tune in on Mondays and Fridays at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And I'll just, go ahead and teach y'all. Also, if you guys want to learn how to play chess, or actually, sorry, if you guys want to play against me, then I will put my next video that I do, I'll put my chess.com account in the description so that you guys, you can find me and send me a little challenge if that's what you guys want to do or whatever. But yeah, so like I said, we're just going to go over chess and stuff like that. So today we're going to start with, I'm just going to go ahead and give a rundown. We're going to start with the board, the pieces individually. And yeah, so like I said, it's going to be going on. So make sure that you guys tune in. And yeah, so I guess we can go ahead and get started. Like I said, we're going to start with the board. So let me go ahead and just share my screen here really fast. Let's see, give me 2 seconds. Sorry, you guys. Let's see here. I'm pretty sure that you guys can see this. I hope that you guys can. But okay, so let's just go ahead and start from the very, very beginning. So if you guys can see, it's probably for people who are new to playing chess, it's a lot of stuff going on right now. On chess or with chess, you play on a chess board. Now each chessboard has 64 squares, that is 32 black and 32 white. So like I said, chessboard, 64 squares. Now, you guys may see the letters A, B, C, D, E, F, all the way through, and then 1 through 8. So those are pretty much the first and last name of the chess squares, I guess you can say, or where a piece is on the board. So the letters are called files, and then the numbers are called ranks. So ranks and files. So let's say that we have, okay, this pawn right here, and I'm going to go over the pieces in a second, but this piece right here is on A2. When you name the square, you always want to go by the letter first, then the number. So that's pretty much just like the first and last name. Like everybody has a first and last name, so do the squares of the chessboard. So just to do a small recap, 64 squares on the chessboard, 32 black, 32 white. So we're going to get into this a little bit later. You guys will see this more in action a little bit later. But from from the A file to the D file, sorry guys, that is what you would call the queen's territory. And like I said, you'll see more of why later. But yeah, just keep that in mind. And then E through H is the king's file. And that's pretty much, I'll just give you guys a short answer as to why. The queen likes to sit on her color. So if she's a white queen, she's going to sit on the white square. If she's a black queen, going to sit on her black square. So yeah. So let's see. Okay, so now these pieces, both of these they're called pawns. Pawns are worth 1 point and they move forward only. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. And in the game of chess, you start each game with a handshake. Now, after the handshake has taken place, white always goes first. So this piece, this pawn right here, moved from D2 to D3. Now, pawns are able to move 1 to 2 squares on their first move. After the first move, they can only move 1 square at a time. So, like I said, we're just going to go ahead and go back just to show you guys this once again. The pawn went from D2, see, D right here, 2 right there. So D2 to D3. Next, it's black's turn. So black decided to move, and like I said, you can move 1 or 2 squares in your first turn. After that turn, you cannot move more than 1 square. So black decided to move from E7 to E5. Okay, so we're going to go ahead. Now, this right here is a challenge in chess because in chess, pawns attack diagonally. So because the white pawn moved from D3 to D4, the black pawn has the opportunity to take that pawn. And like I said, pawns are worth 1 point. Therefore, black would be up 1 point because they took white's pawn. So let's just go ahead and start from the very, very beginning. So pawns are, oh, and that's another thing. Pawns always start on the second rank. Well, white pawns start on the second rank, and then black pawns start on the 7th rank. And so, and this is important too, because white, like I said, white's territory is from rank 1 through rank 4. Therefore, if, let's say, a black pawn starts on A2, you know, you need to switch the board because, like I said, A2 is for white square or for white pawns. Sorry. But so yeah. So let's just go ahead and watch this play through again. The pawn on D2 moves to D3. The black pawn on E7 moves to E5. Okay, so let's go ahead and get back to this. Now, like I showed you, the black pawn, because the white pawn just moved, the black pawn has a chance to take the pawn on D4. By doing that, I'm just going to move diagonally. Okay. So now that's pretty much it with the pawns. The pawns are pretty straightforward. It's not, you know, really much. Now, I guess I can talk to you guys about pawn promotion. Pawn promotion is essentially when a pawn reaches, okay, so let me show you guys. Let's see how far this plays out. Okay, so actually, let me not skip it fully. So after the pawn on D, here, let me go back so you guys can see it. After the pawn on D4 was taken, we're gonna go here. White moved from H2 to H4. Like I said, as you can see, pawns move on their first move, pawns can move 2 squares at a time, and that's what white chose to do. So then after that, the pawn on the pawn on H7 moved, the black pawn on H7 moved to H5. And I'll keep telling you guys the colors just so that you can, you know, follow along easier, I guess. So then after that, the pawn on C2 moved to C4. And then this is what you call en passant. Now, I know that I just told you guys that, you know, pawns attack diagonally. But let me show you guys this more in full effect. So, and bear with me, I'm not the best explainer of en passant, but I'm pretty sure that I can explain it, I think. So, now, if the white pawn on C2 decides to not challenge, because like I said, in chess, here, let me back up. In chess, if you are a diagonal from a piece, that's a challenge. Or if 2 pawns are diagonal from each other, that is a challenge. You can choose to accept or choose to decline, but either way, it's a challenge. So let's say that the pawn on C2 decides, I don't really want to challenge it. I'm just, you know, going about my day and go from C2 to C4. Black can come and say, you know what, since you don't want to challenge me, I'm going to just go ahead and take you. And so that's what he did. Now, this only happens when a pawn is still in their territory. So here, let me back up a little bit. As you can see, it only happens if you, I guess you can say, refuse to challenge. So if you're still in this, okay, so let's say it was here. Let me see if it'll play out on the black side. Okay. I don't think it will, and I don't want to mess up and forget where I was at. So when you are still in the two, right, or when you're in rank 2, or rank 7 for that matter, but if you choose to decline, that's when you can take. Okay. And so as you can see, that's also an option as well. Or it's a choice, I guess you can say, because you can still move forward and choose to not take them either. So I'm gonna try to go over that a little bit more in the future, but I'm gonna try. Let me see. Okay, so on pawn sign, let me go over it one more time just so that we're clear. So if the pawn here, wait, is it black smooth? Okay, so the pawn on C2 decides, you know what? I could go 1 square or I can go 2, but I know that if I go 2, he might take me. So let me just go ahead and move. Well, I placed it down, but let me just go ahead and move up 2 squares because I don't want any trouble. But let's say that the pawn, the black pawn on D4 decides, I still want to take him. So they can cross over because it's in its territory and they refuse to fight back. I hope that makes sense to you guys. If it doesn't, just let me know and I'll, try to explain it a little bit more in depth. But yeah, so that's pretty much everything with the pawns. Oh, I did say that I was going to go over pawn promotion. Okay, so let's see here. So let's say that we get to the board to, where it's a clear space. So white just, and I know I skipped a few, but, you guys pretty much get it. Pawns move forward. They cannot move backwards. Pawns can only move forward and diagonally. They can only move diagonally when they're attacking. And so they move twice on their first move. After that, only one. So let's say that a pawn gets to a clearing. There's no more pawns in that row, and they're, making their way down. So white just moved. Let's say black wants to move up. White moves up, and then black moves. Now, this is what you call pawn promotion. When a pawn reaches the end, like their opponent's files, then they are able to promote to a higher, a piece that's worth more points. And so I personally, I feel like, and you guys will learn this further down the line, but I always would change to a queen. A queen is the most valuable, let's see, point-wise, it's the most valuable piece on the board. So yeah, I personally would always change or promote my pawn to a queen. And so yeah, so let's say, okay, this pawn just promoted. We're going to move this one. We're going to move, let's see, okay, this one here. Once again, just to show you guys pawn promotion. Now, you can change to a queen, a knight, a rook, or a bishop. However, like I said, I choose to be a queen, but you guys can choose, whatever piece fits you, or, whatever piece you want to choose for that matter. So yeah, that's pretty much, like I said, the pieces are pretty straightforward. It's not really much to, I guess, go over necessarily, especially with the pawn. The pawn, I feel like, is the most straightforward piece. Moves up and down. On its first try, it can move, or on its first move, it can move. Oh my gosh. On its first move, it can move 2 squares at a time. After that, no more. So like I said, if you guys have any questions, just comment them and I'll definitely answer them. Okay. So now we're going to move on from the pawn to the bishop. So if you guys see, if you look closely, the bishop has these little slash marks at the top of the piece. And that is because it pretty much shows you how the bishop moves. So the bishop can move diagonally. It doesn't move up and down, side to side, any of that. It only moves diagonally. Now the bishop is worth 3 points. So let's go ahead and show you guys this in action. Also, once I show you guys how all the pieces line up, you will realize that the bishops stand next to the king and the queen. It's like the right-hand man kind of thing. But yeah, so bishops move diagonally. White bishops always start on C1 and F1. And then the black bishops always start on C8 and F8. And just to go back to that, just to show you guys, as you can see, the letters here, once again, the letters are called the files, and then the numbers are called the ranks. So the ranks go up and down, files side to side. And one way that I was taught to remember it is like a filing cabinet. So yeah, if that helps, just to, you know, give you guys like a visual, I guess. So like I said, bishops move diagonally. They can move as far diagonally as they can see. So let's say, okay, let's say this bishop moved here. Actually, no, hold on. Let's say that this bishop moved here. Now, like I said, this, well, not like I said, but this is somewhat a challenge as well. So since the white bishop moved from C1 to D6, it's challenging the bishop on F8 because, you know, this bishop can come and take it, or it can choose to run. Now, let's see. So, like I said, bishops are worth 3 points. So if I decide to take the white bishop, I'm up 3 points. And so pretty much the points in chess, because I was asked this a while ago, why points are included in chess, they're pretty much included just so that you can keep up with who's winning, if that makes sense. Because the game of chess, to win the game of chess, you have to pretty much put your opponent's king in checkmate. Now, you guys might not know what that means as of right now, but don't worry, y'all. You know, I'll go more into that in a second, but I'm just telling you guys. But yeah, so the points are pretty much just to see who's winning. Yeah, so just to show you guys again, black just moved, white can go. Now the smart decision would be for the bishop on F1 to not go anywhere but to A6, because if you guys have been, you know, paying attention or whatever, the pawn, if it goes from F1 to A6, then the pawn, or oh my gosh, the bishop on C8 can go and attack this same bishop the same way that the bishop on H6 did. So let me just go ahead and start this over, the simulation over, so that you guys can see how they move. So once again, bishops move diagonally, and when they attack diagonally, and the only difference with bishops is, or the difference from bishops and pawns, or one of the differences anyways, is that bishops can move backwards. Pawns are the only piece on the chessboard that cannot move backwards. So, and by backwards, I mean backwards diagonally, if that makes sense. Like say, okay, let me show you guys, just so you're not confused. But say this pawn, or sorry, y'all, the bishop on C1 decides to move to the square on E3. It can move backwards diagonally back to C1. Well, it's black's turn, but still it's able to do that. If it, you know, okay, let me show y'all. So if the bishop on C1 decides to move to E3, and let's say the bishop on F8 decides to move to E7, then this bishop on E3 can decide, okay, let me just go back to C1. That's what I'm trying to show you guys pretty much. Okay, so let's just play the simulation out again so you guys can see. So the bishop on F1 moved to C4. The black bishop on F8 is going to move from F8 to C5. And yeah, they just moved diagonally. It's pretty straightforward, like I said. So yeah, just a quick recap of everything that I've went over so far. So a chessboard has a total of 64 squares. That is 32 black and then 32 white. Now, like you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, all the way through 8, and A through H. And so pretty much those are like the first and the last name of the square. And also, if you guys were wondering why each square has a first and last name, it's pretty much because in the game of chess, when you write it down, like, okay, if you're doing a speed chess tournament or game, I don't know how to explain it. If you're doing a timed chess game, then you would write down like, okay, I moved this pawn from B2 to B4 or something like that. You want to keep track of what you have been doing, of like the moves that you've been making and stuff like that. So, so yeah, the letters are called, sorry, I'm just making sure that I'm not saying it wrong. The letters are called files and the numbers are called ranks. So once again, let's see. Let's just start them from the very, very beginning. Now, the name of this square right here that this bishop is on right here is called C1. When you're addressing the names of the pieces, or when you're addressing the names of the squares, you always say the first name and then the last name. So in this case, the letter and then the number. So like I said, this square right here is C1. This square right here is F1. This square right here is F8. And this square right here is C8. Okay, so then let's go back to right here. The first piece that we went over, let's go all the way back, was the pawn. Pawns move straight up. Straight up, no, they can't move backwards. That's not, you can't play chess like that. So pawns are able to move one square on their first move, or they can choose to move two squares on their first move. However, after the first move, that's it. You cannot move two squares ever again. So just choose that wisely. Just to show you guys, pawns attack diagonally. That's the only time that they don't go straight forward, is when they're attacking. So let's see here. Let me show you guys here. Let me reset it. And then let me show you guys a little bit of en passant again. Okay, so we went over this briefly. Like I said, I'm not the best with explaining en passant because I really, and I didn't even tell y'all what it means. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, so en passant is actually French, and it means in passing. So it's spelled E-N space P-A-S-S-A-N-T, en passant. So, and you know, I'm not French, so I don't really have the little accent with it, but yeah, so this is pretty much when a pawn decides to, because like you guys seen, if, let's see, let's go back. So if this pawn went here, if the pawn on C2 went to C3, and the pawn on D4 has the chance to take that pawn. However, if the pawn on C2 decides, you know what, I'm gonna just go ahead and pass him up because I don't want to, you know, lose any points or whatever, then this pawn on D3 or on D4 can move to C3. Oh my gosh, y'all, sorry. But the pawn on D4 can choose to move to the square on C3 and still take the pawn on C4. And that's called en passant. And it only happens on the first move and when you're still in the territory. Now, bringing me back to the territories, like I said, I touched on this briefly as well, but I'm going to go over it again just to make sure that we're still all up to speed and everything. So on rank 1 through 4, that is the white's territory. And that's because if you guys notice, white starts on the second rank. So rank 1 through 4 is white's rank, and then rank 5 through 8 is black's rank. Now, like I said, you guys will see this more in action, I guess, once I go over all of the pieces. But A through D is the queen side of the board, and then E through H is the king side of the board. So now and then let me just go ahead and go over the bishop really, really fast. So the bishop the pawn is worth 1 point. The bishop is worth 3, and the bishop moves diagonally. Okay, so I'll show you guys that. Pretty straightforward, just moves diagonally. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and get started with the rook. And if you guys have been paying attention, these are right here are the pawns in the rook. And so another thing, in the game of chess, the pieces, for the most part, pretty much every piece besides the pawn, tells you how they move. So if you see right here, it has little slashes, I guess, or cuts in it. And so rooks move up and down and side to side. Okay, so let's go ahead and see this in action. So white always goes first. So, hold on. Okay, so the white, and that's the thing, rooks always start on the corners, the 4 corners of the board. So A1, H1, H8, as well as A8. They're always on the corners of the board. So the rook on A1 moves to G1. And it does that simply by going side to side. Because like I said, they go side to side, up and down. Okay, so side to side, all the way from A1 to G1. Now, the black rook can decide to go, or decided to go, from H8 to G8. So this is kind of, well, I'll talk about that later. But yeah, so let's see. As you can see, the rooks attack in the same way that they move, which is up and down or side to side. So let me show you guys this again. The rook on H1 moved to H7 and took the pawn. Okay, so pretty much, let me just say this right now. The only pawn, or the only piece that attacks in a way that they don't move, is the pawn, if that makes sense. I hope I'm making sense to you guys. But the pawn, like you guys see, the pawn moves up and up only forward, and it attacks diagonally. But that's the only piece that does that. So after the rook on h1 moves to h7, let's see what happens next. So once again, they attack diagonal, or sorry, they attack straight up and down, or side to side, but this one attacked up and down. So move from A8 to A2. Now it's white's turn. So what is white going to do, or what can white do? Move from H7 to G7 and take that pawn. And what can black do? Black can move from G8 to G7 and take it. However, these, to me, these are like kind of petty because, you know, I don't know. To me, that's just like tit for tat. Like in chess, you want to make moves that are going to benefit you because, you know, here at Macam, we like to tie chess into life. And so with life, you know, you're not going to make a decision or a move in this case that's not going to benefit you in the long run or even in the short run. You know, everything that you do is supposed to be beneficial to you as a person, or you in what you're doing in the future, or, you know, whatever the case may be. Now, the rook is worth 5 points. Like I said, the bishop is worth 3, the pawn is worth 1, and the bishop is worth, the pawn is worth 1, the bishop is worth 3, and the rook is worth 5. Sorry, guys, I'm getting a little tongue-tied. But, so yeah, we're just going to go ahead and show you, or I'm just going to go ahead and show you guys one more time. Now, they move side to side and up and down. Okay, so like I said, you know, it's pretty straightforward. It's not, you know, too hard to comprehend. But I will be going over everything at the end just to make sure that you guys are, you know, getting it or whatever. So, oops, hold on. I guess I didn't. Okay. So now, let's see here. Go all the way back. Now you guys can see why I said the queen side of the board. This piece right here is the queen. Now, the queen is worth the most amount of points on the board. The king is the most important piece on the board. I don't want you guys to forget that. But, okay, so the queen is worth 9 points. So, like I said, the most valuable piece. And some people like to look at the queen as a mixture of the bishop and the rook because the queen can move side to side, up and down, as well as diagonally. It can move pretty much any way on the board. So yeah, the queen likes to, you know, like females like to match. The queen likes to match with her color. So the white queen is going to be on the white square, and the black queen is going to be on the black square. So the queens always start on the D file. Okay, so this queen starts on D1, and the black queen starts on D8. So, like I said, they move side to side, up and down, as well as diagonally. So let's just show you guys how it's going to play out. Okay, so pawns always move first because in a real game of chess, pawns, hold on, let me go back here. Pawns are always, well, I can't fully go back, but still, pawns are always on the second file. The second rank. And they're always, you know, right in front of all the powerful pieces. So let's see. The pawn moves from A4 to A5. The white pawn does. And then the black queen takes the pawn on A5 by going diagonally from D8 to D5. So let me show you guys that again. So I'm gonna just start all over. Okay, so the pawn on A4 moves from A4 to A5, and then the queen moves from D8 to A5 and captures that pawn. Now, if you guys can see, this is a diagonal line, and if this pawn doesn't move, then there's a chance that the queen could take it. So let's see what they do. Okay, so the queen on D1 moves to G4. Okay, so let me show you guys this again. D1 all the way to G4. Then the black queen, once again, takes the pawn on D2. See, I told y'all. It's like, no, but okay, so then the pawn, or the queen on G4 takes the pawn on G7. Now, as you guys can see, the queens are in each other's, I guess, line of crossfire, or I don't know if that's how you say that, but You know, so it is Black's turn, the Black Queen's turn, and so she has the opportunity to take the White Queen. So the Black Queen on D2 can move to D7 and take the Queen. Okay, so the Queen once again is worth 9 points. It likes to match, so keep it if it's, let me just go ahead and start all the way over. If it's the White Queen, keep her on the white square. If it's a Black Queen, keep her on the black square. Like I said, the queens always start on the D file. And then the left side of the board, well, let me say, the A through D file is the queen side of the board because this is where she starts, and the and file E through H is the king side of the board. So yeah, that's that. Let's see. Okay, so now y'all, we're gonna get into the king. So the king is the most valuable piece on the board. And that's because the king, he's worth the entire game. So if you lose your king, that's it. There is no more, and that's what I was saying earlier about the way to win the game of chess is to get your opponent's king in checkmate. So if your king is in checkmate, that's it. That's the end of the game. I guess y'all gonna have to run another game back because that's it. So the king is always going to sit right beside the queen. And so he starts right here, which is on E1. So let's see. Okay. So just to show y'all, like I said, E through H is the king side of the board because that's where the king starts. Now, because the queen wants to match and she wants to stay on her color, the king is kind of forced to not match, as you guys can see, because the white queen is on the black square, or the brown in this case, and the black king is on the white square. So yeah, just trying to point that out, I guess. So yeah, so pretty much the king can move up, but okay, so let me go back. The king can move any direction that it wants. It can pretty much move just like the queen, but the only thing is the king can only move one square at a time. One square, no 2, no 3, no 4, just one square at a time. And pretty much that's the point of the game is to use all of the other pieces that you have to defend and protect the king. That's why you have so many other pieces. So pretty much you shouldn't move your king unless you pretty much have to, or if you're castling, which I'll get into in a little bit later. So yeah, the king can move one square at a time in any direction. It can also move backwards, but it cannot move more than one square. So let's just see this. And so the king on, let me go back. The king on E1, here, let me go all the way. The king on E1 moved to E2. And the king on E8 moved to E7. And I'm going to show you guys something really quickly. If you guys notice, so, okay, white just moved. Black, I don't know if you guys can see the dots on the screen. They're pretty faint, but the black king has the option to move here to this, okay, to D7, to C6, to pretty much every square around it except for this square, which is E5. That is because two kings cannot be next to each other. So you cannot take your opponent's king using your king. You have to, use a different piece or whatever. But two kings cannot be next to each other. So if you see, or if you'll notice, they kind of play the runaround with not being next to each other because, if your kings are next to each other, you're not playing chess. There's rules to this. So, but, oh, I just realized I skipped a piece. Hold on, I think this is why this was open. Let me see. I know I'm not missing it. Okay, here it is. Sorry, y'all. Okay, so I skipped a piece, but, I'm bringing it back. So the piece that I missed is the knight. Now, the knight can move in some people call it a 7 or some people call it an L shape. So it moves, let's see here. We're going to start with this one. The knight can move 2 squares down or up for that matter, and then 1 square to the left or to the right. So let me show you guys that again. 2 squares to the side, and then 1 to the left or right. So it always moves 2 up and then 1 to the left or right, or 2 down, left or right, whichever way you want to go, but you have to go. It's pretty much only up, down, side to side. You can't go diagonally. Now, the cool thing about the knight, well, besides the way that it moves, because I think that's pretty cool, but anyways, the knight is able to jump over pieces. That is the only piece in the chessboard that is able to jump over pieces. And just so you guys can see what I mean, let's say if the knight wanted to go from f4 to g2, it can jump over and see it. You can go either way. So you can go this way and come here, or you can go this way and come here. Okay? So yeah, let's just start this from the very, very beginning. So let's say that all these pieces are attacking this little poor knight right here. So what the knight can do to, I'm just going to show you guys pretty much how it can attack each piece. Now, if I was a knight, I would definitely go for probably the queen first, but still. So move those 2 squares, 2, in this case, to the right, and then 1 square up. And then it takes the queen. And so that's pretty much how they move. And then let's say, let's see, let's say that this, the rook wanted to come take the knight. It can do that, straight across. But then let's say that the knight on h1 wanted to come take the pawn on f2. Move those 2 squares, 1 up. Why is it not? Oh, because black just went. Sorry, y'all. Okay, I can't show you guys that, but it would attack like that. But black just went. So, and that's another thing. In the game of chess, you get 1 turn, if that makes sense. So once black moves, then white moves. And also, if you touch a piece, you have to move it. So that's just another one of the, rules to chess. So I'm just going to go ahead and start completely over just in case we have any new viewers, or, if there was something that I might have missed or that you guys might have questions on or anything like that. So the pawn has a total of 64 squares, 32 black and 32 white. There are, as you can see, there's letters and numbers. Now, each letter and number represents the first and last name of the board, or of the squares on the board. So the letters are the files and the numbers are the ranks. So let's say we're talking about this pawn right here. This pawn is on F2. You always go with the letter first and then the number second. It's pretty much like the first and last name. So yeah, then the very first piece on the board that you're going to notice is the pawn. Well, that's the first piece that you pretty much move. Now, pawns are able to, we're going to start from the beginning. Pawns are able to move 1 to 2 squares on their first move. So we're going to show you. It can move from D2 to D3, and that's what the white pawn chose to do. But as you can see, the black pawn chose to move from E7 to E5, and that's 2 squares. But it can only do this on the very first move. After that, it's a no-go. You can't do it anymore. Also pawns are worth 1 point. Now, I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but knights are worth 3 points as well. And I'll go over all the points again at the end, but I just realized that I forgot to say that about the knights. So yeah. Pawns are worth 1 point and they attack diagonally. So let me show you guys this. Didn't mean to go already, but so the white pawn on D4 is going to get attacked by the pawn on E5, just like so. Okay, so now let me just go ahead and let this play, and then once again we're going to go over en passant. So en passant means in passing, and it's pretty much when a pawn in their territory decides, you know what, I'm just not going to even try to fight or anything like that, and the black pawn or the white pawn in whatever case it may be, decides, I'm still going to take that pawn. And it only happens when it's in their territory and if the pawn decides to skip in front of it. Or let me see if that makes sense. Because, okay, if you, like I said, pawns attack diagonally. So it could have just did this. But since it skipped, I guess, next to it, actually, it, decided to go ahead and take it. Now, I'm trying to emphasize this because not many chess players know this. It's actually, kind of well, I wouldn't say a secret. It's just not something that many people know. So I want to make sure that you guys, y'all know it so that y'all can, you can play somebody and they're like, that's not a rule. Like, yes, it is. Like, but okay. So yeah, that's en passant. Now, the next piece is the bishop. So the bishop moves diagonally. The bishop is worth 3 points. So the bishop moves diagonally, and as you can see, it has the little slashes on it, which pretty much, and that's the thing with chess pieces, all of them except for, in my opinion, I don't think the knight really tells you how it moves either. So all the pieces but the knight and the pawn tell you how they move. So this diagonal slash symbolizes the diagonal movements that they make. So the pawn on C1 can move to anywhere in its sight. That's the thing. They are able to move as far as they want, as far as they can see, if that makes sense. So let's say that you have, a different piece in the way. They can't jump over it. So either they'll take it or they'll stop right in front of it, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to show you guys that. Just pretty straightforward. They move diagonally. Pawns are worth 1 point. Bishops are worth 3 points. Okay. So, and another thing, let me tell y'all. So, actually, we're going to go ahead and go right back to pawn promotion really fast because I forgot to go over this. Okay. So, once you get to a point where there are no more pawns or any other pieces for that matter in your way, and you want to try to reach the end of your opponent's, you want to try to reach the end of your opponent's file. So, if you reach all the way, hold on, right, black just moved. So if you reach the H file or, whatever file you're going to, that's called pawn promotion. And so you can promote your pawn to a bishop, a rook, a knight, a bishop, a rook, a knight, or, sorry, y'all, a bishop, a rook, a knight, or a queen. Like I said, I personally like to become a queen. She's just more powerful and she moves more. And, she's in my opinion, the most powerful piece on the board besides the king, if that makes sense. But yeah, so back to this. The only time that you should have 2 bishops that of the same color on the board is when you have pawn promotion. So if you have 2 white bishops on 2 white squares, then that's not right, unless you went through pawn promotion, just so that you guys know. So there should only be 1 black pawn or 1 black bishop on the black square and 1 white pawn, or I don't know why I keep saying pawns, but 1 black bishop on the black square or on 1 black square and 1 white bishop on the white square. You shouldn't have 2 of the same. You shouldn't have 2 bishops on the same color. You guys get what I'm saying? Because if you see, bishops, they move diagonally on their color. You can't move to another color and then try to go, diagonally from there. It's not going to work. You can only go diagonally on your color. So you shouldn't have 2 bishops on the same color. I hope I'm making sense to you guys. So yeah, now, just to recap again, we're going to go ahead and go back to the rook. The rook stays on the 4 corners of the board. And pretty soon, in a second, I'm going to show you guys just a full-on chessboard so that you can see where everything is and, how they play out. So, let's see. The rook moves side to side, up and down. And like I said, all but 2 show how they move. So you have side to side and then up and down. So let me just show you guys that. The rook on A1 decided to go to G1. And then the rook on G8 the rook on H8 decided to move to G8, sorry. And remember, when you're naming the square, always go letter first, then the number. So then let me go back. The rook on H1 decided to take the pawn on H7 and went straight up and took it, okay? So that's I'm just going to show you guys once again. They move up and down, attack up and down. The only piece that attacks differently is the pawn, which attacks side by or diagonal. So, and another thing about the pawn, pawns cannot move backwards at all. Every other piece can move backwards except for the pawn. So, Let's see. I'm pretty sure that's all for the rook. Now, we're gonna go back to the knight. The knight, like I showed you guys, the knight can move in an L or a seven shape. So let's say that this knight right here on D5 wanted to take the knight on E7. It does this by coming up one square and then to the left, or I guess you would say to the left, or moving up, whichever way you want to address it. So moving up and then going to the left 2 squares. Okay. I hope I'm making sense, y'all. But so moving one square, or okay, so it can move one square and then to 2. Oh my gosh. You can move one square and then let's say 2 to the left or 2 to the right, or it can go 2 squares and then 1 to the left or 1 to the right. As long as you're moving in an L or a 7 shape, and it has to be a total of 3 squares. Now, like I mentioned previously, knights are the only piece on the board that are able to move or to jump over pieces. So let's say that this knight right here wanted to go to the knight on F4, wanted to come to G2. It can go here, move up 1 square, then go down 2, or it can go down 2 squares into the right 1. Okay, so yeah, like I said, knights move in an L or a 7 shape, however you want to look at it. And then they move, and then they're the only piece that are allowed to jump over pieces. Now, the knights are worth a total of 3 points. So the knights are worth 3 points. The bishop is worth 3 as well. The rook is worth 5, and the pawn is worth 1. So back to the queen. The queen is worth 9 points. So the queen is the most point-wise, it's the most valuable piece on the board. And like I said, some people like to consider the queen to be a mixture of the bishop and the rook because it moves diagonally as well as up and down, side to side, however you want to look at it. So I'm going to just show you guys how they attack. So let's say that the pawn on A4 decided to go to A5. The queen on D8 can decide to take the pawn and go here, just like that. Okay? So let's say that the queen on D1 decided to move to D4. So I'll show you guys this again. Or sorry, G4, I'm sorry. Let's say that the pawn, or I don't know why I keep saying pawns. I know that's the first piece I went over, but like, dang. But okay, so let's say that the queen on D1 decided to move to G4. It does that by going diagonally. So yeah. And then it has the chance or the opportunity, the decision, however you want to say it, to take the pawn on D7 by going once again diagonally. But it's black's turn, so we're just gonna go ahead and let black move. And the black queen on A1 took the pawn on D2. Now I know that you guys see that this is only you're only seeing them move diagonally. However, they can attack vertically or horizontally, however they want to. But it was just in this simulation that they attack diagonally. So as you guys, like I was saying, the white queen just moved. So the black queen can take the white queen that is on D7 by moving from D2 to D7. Okay, so then we're going to go right back to the kings. Okay, so let's see. The kings, like I said, the kings are the way that you win a game of chess. So if you put your king, or if you put your opponent's king in checkmate, that's it, the game is over. So the king, like I said, the king is the most important piece, but it's, in my opinion, like the most boring piece because it can move anywhere that it wants to, but it can only move 1 square at a time. So just to show you guys, let's say that the king on E1 wanted to move to E2. That's as far as it can move on 1 turn. In the next turn, then it can move up to E3 or however it sees fit. But it only moves 1 square at a time. So yeah, it moved the black king moved from E8 to E7. Now let's just go right back to the queens really, really fast. So I can show you guys something. Like I said, A through D, that is the queen side of the board. And then let me show you guys the beginning here. E through H is the king side of the board. Okay. So let's see. I'm pretty sure, yeah, this is en passant, but I don't necessarily want to go over en passant right now. So let me just show you guys. Um, hold on. Let's see. I'm just gonna come up with a new board so that I can show you guys everything. Okay. So now this is what a chessboard looks like when every single piece is on the board. Now, like I said, I didn't say this, but you have a total of 8 pawns. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way through 8. Then the rooks sit, like I said, on the 4 corners on the very, very outside of the board. Okay, so then next in line are the knights. The knights sit right next to the rook, in between the rook and the bishop. Then, like I said, sorry, I don't mean to keep saying like I said, but the bishop is pretty much like you can think of it as the king and the queen's right-hand man. So they sit right next to the king and the queen. The queen likes to match, so the white queen is going to be on the white square and the black queen is going to be on the black square. Now the king sits right next to the queen. And I guess another way that you can remember it is the king sits on the opposite square of the queen, or the opposite square of its color for that matter. So if it's a white king, he's going to sit on a black square. If it's a black queen, he's going to sit on a white square, mainly because the queen already took their matching color because she likes to match. So, and then once again, you pretty much just repeat the pieces on the other side after the king. So the bishop sits next to the king, and then right next to the king, there is the knight, and then right next to the knight is the rook. So I'm going to show you guys a small, I'm going to play for real, but it's not like a serious game. I'm just going to show you guys pretty much how the pieces move. Okay, so like I said, you're able to move your any pawn twice if you want to on its first move. So let's say I decided to move here. Okay, so then okay, so I moved the white pawn from I moved the white pawn on D2 to D4. Now, my opponent can decide to move their pawn from on E7 to E6. Like I said, you can move 1 or 2 squares on your first try. That's it, only your first try. But it doesn't really matter however you want to go about it. Okay, and so let's see here. Like I said, I'm not really playing an intense game, so I'm just going to show you guys. Once again, the bishop can move from C1 all the way to, it can move up here if it wants, to H6. However, if you guys know, pawns attack diagonally, or if you guys have been paying attention, I guess you could say, but pawns attack diagonally. So this pawn on G7 can take the bishop on H6 just by taking it diagonally. So me personally, if I wanted to get my bishop out there, I would play it safe and pretty much probably just go like right here. So I would move from C1 to F4. Okay, and like I said, just make sure that when you guys, and the importance in the first and last name of the squares on the board is pretty much just so that you know, so that you okay, because like I said, in a time chess game, you're going to write down, or even, you know, if you in a regular chess game, if you want, you can write down like, okay, I moved this queen from here to here to there to there, you know, and so you pretty much want to remember where you moved. And I've heard stories about people who, you know, were playing a chess game outside or something like that, and the wind may have knocked the pieces around or something like that. And the importance in writing down or chess notation is so that you can, you know, pretty much just put your pieces back, like, okay, I move this here, and then just start your game from where it last ended, I guess. So then, once again, just to show you guys how the knights move, it can jump over the pawn on G7 and move up 1 more square to G6 and then go to the left or to the right. Now, I wouldn't go to the right because, as you can see, the bishop is sitting right there. So I would go right here because, once again, the bishops do not move up and down, they move side to side. Just to go over it again, the bishops are worth a total of 3 points, and the knights are worth a total of 3 points as well. So let me just show you guys. Let's say I did go ahead and do this, move here. Now, let's say the bishop took the knight. Now, as you can see, I don't know if you guys can see this far down, but it says a +3, and that's because the white side of the board, or the white opponent, or however you want to say it, is up 3 points because they took their opponent's knight. So pretty much whenever you take your opponent's piece, you get you increase your amount of points in the game by that amount. However, oh my gosh. Okay, so if you take your opponent's piece, you pretty much get that amount of points. That's it. So yeah, unless you were losing or something like that, then it'll pretty much just, it's a negative minus whatever. But yeah, so let's see, I've showed you guys the bishop, the knight, the pawn. Okay, so then let's see, the queen can move diagonally as well, can move up and down, side to side. However, it doesn't have the room to move up and down or side to side, so I'm just going to move it from d8 to I'm gonna go right here to f6. So let's say that I just decided to move a pawn from a2 to a4. This queen can come and take the bishop on from f6 to h6. Wait. Okay, sorry. Just like that. So yeah, let me see. Oh, and then I have to go over the rook. The rook, sorry. So now the rook can move up and down as well, or side to side. And I simply just chose to move the rook from a1, or the rook on a1 to the square on a3. And like I said, okay, let me see. Let's just move this knight right here on b8 to a6, just down 2 squares, or down 1, 2, and then over 1 square right here. So the king has the ability to move any way that it wants to, but only 1 square at a time. So it can move diagonally 1 time, or anything like that. However, if you've seen, it didn't let me go here because the queen is sitting right here. So let's say that I was right there, the queen can just easily take me. And so that's another rule of chess, but we're going to get into that tomorrow, as well as CPR and a whole bunch of other things. So in the game of chess, because the objective is to capture your opponent's king, you are not allowed to put yourself in check. So because of that, I wasn't able to move to that square. Okay. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's pretty much all of the pieces. Showed you guys how they move, stuff like that. Once again, there's 64 squares on the board, 32 black, 32 white. There's 8 pawns, and then there's 2 of every other piece except for the king and the queen. So 2 knights, 2 rooks, 2 bishops. The pawns are worth 1 point. The rook is worth 3. The rook is worth 5. The bishop is worth 3, and the knight is also worth 3. The queen is worth 9 points, and the king is worth the entire game. So if you get your king took, that's it. So once again, A through D is the queen side of the board, as you can see, and then E through H is the king side of the board. 1 through 4, that is white territory, and then 5 through 8 is black. Once again, the numbers are the ranks, and the letters are the files. Sorry if I'm going over everything fast. And pretty much it just the first and last name. So this square right here is D4, and then this square right here is E4, and then on and so forth. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's pretty much it. I guess I can talk about what we're going to get into tomorrow. So tomorrow we're going to get into castling. We're going to get into protecting CPR, which I'll tell you guys what that stands for and everything like that tomorrow. But yeah, so we're pretty much just, like I said, we're going to be here, or not tomorrow, I'm sorry, Monday. Stay tuned for Monday. But I'm going to be here on Mondays and Fridays at 7 p.m. 7 to 8 is when I'll be teaching you guys how to play chess. And so let me go ahead and just stop screen sharing. Okay. So I just want to say thank you guys again for tuning in. If you enjoyed, like and comments, but thank you guys for tuning in and everything. And then just be sure to tune in on Monday as well at 7 o'clock, 7 to 8 once again, just to learn how to play, chess or whatever. And next time I will leave my information for chess.com so that you guys, if you want to play me in a game of chess, you're able to. So yeah, it's pretty much 8 o'clock. So I just want to wish everybody a good day. Happy Malcolm Friday. Sorry. Happy Malcolm Friday. And I hope you guys have a good weekend. So thank you. Bye.